Good morning. This year, our theme is values-based spiritual living, and we're studying the shared values of our spiritual organization, Centers for Spiritual Living. And this month, our focus is on the spiritual value of diversity and inclusivity. And for the benefit of our video watching audience, I'm going to read the affirmation that we just read together a few moments ago. We value, embrace, and celebrate the individual uniqueness and contribution of all people as they express through differences of gender, ethnicity, culture, history, experience, talents, and sexual orientation. Now, to truly embrace people that way, I'm guessing we're going to have to be able to listen to them. To truly embrace people, and that's what our topic is about this morning, listening as a spiritual practice. And I think that to celebrate the differences in people, we have to be able to listen to them generously. In other words, above and beyond the ordinary receiving of information, really deep below the surface. And the idea behind all of this comes from our spiritual teaching, Science of Mind. And it's this idea that the ground of all being, sometimes known as God, or the immeasurable mind of the Creator, well, it's infinite. It's more than what I know at any point in time. It's more than what I think I already know, and it embraces everything, even seeming opposites. And not only that, it extends in every direction, in all time, in all space, forever and ever and ever. So, when I find myself fixed on an opinion, for example, or when I get super used to communicating with or listening to people who already think the way I think, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just possible that I may be missing out on that infinite moreness that is available to me through the one mind. And spiritual living is the practice of opening and staying open to that ever-expanding presence of newness so that I can be, say, do, experience, and bring into the world something that has never, ever been expressed before, something different. It's also Black History Month this month. And so I've been practicing thinking outside of my own box. And I've been reading Nelson Mandela's address to the International Press Institute. They had a congress in Cape Town in 1994. And this is what he said. He was cautioning us about the dangers of limiting the truth to our one particular version of it. Now, keep in mind, this was written about freedom of the press, but it's also a really good reminder of staying free and not getting stuck spiritually or emotionally or any one of the ways that we can get stuck. Here's what he said. Oh, I have it on a slide, because it's really good. Truth does indeed have immense power, yet it remains extremely elusive. No single person, no body of opinion, no religious doctrine, no political party or government can claim to have a monopoly on truth. For that reason, truth can be arrived at only through the untrammeled, now isn't that a wonderful word? Untrammeled, unrestricted, unconfined by rules. I love that word. Only through the untrammeled contest between and among competing opinions, in which as many viewpoints as possible are given a fair and equal hearing. Whew. Now, this is an amazingly good time to practice listening to competing opinions and viewpoints and noticing if I am willing to give them fair and equal hearing. Oops. I was thinking about a friend of mine. Well, he is of a different faith tradition to me. And it has been very interesting for me to accept that he has a different set of beliefs to me. Now, the thing is, although I think he is completely wrong, and although he thinks I am misguided and deluded in mine, we have great love and admiration for each other. And so our conversations, they tend to be these fascinating dances of listening to each other. And because we have a foundation of affection and respect, we have the freedom to disagree strongly. We even poke fun at each other and ridicule each other about the things we cherish the most. But we never risk losing our connection, because the foundation of affection and respect is what allows for the differences to be present. And I'm taking that into my heart. That's an important message. I won't stop loving you or respecting you or including you just because I disagree with you. Can I live up to that? This has made me think of my family of origin. I had forgotten how it was with them. You know how that goes? Because I tend to only remember the good times, remember all the love. It's wonderful. But the fact of the matter is that we were quite divided among ourselves. When it came to politics, oh my word. When it came to religion, when it came to sexuality, when it came to manners, when it came to food, when it came to movies, when it came to patriotism, when it came to racism, oh my gosh, and we could get into quite the screaming match about it. Now, I don't mind telling you, I know it's stereotyping, but one half of the family was Italian, and they were overly vocal. And the other side was Dutch, and they were terrified. or at least that's how it looked. But can you imagine the combustion that was going on? But even so, we never stopped loving each other, even when we were mad at each other. A person couldn't lose their place in the family because of a disagreement or an unwanted point of view. You couldn't get thrown out or banished or punished for an unacceptable point of view or for how we voted. We just dealt with our differences as part of the complex animal that family is. We got to express ourselves and then come back to love. Now I see that is what the value and beauty of diversity is. Differences. And as a spiritual value, it must include the commitment to this idea that the one infinite life that runs in and through all of us shows up and expresses differently. And when a person or a nation or a religion tries to thwart infinite possibility, tries to restrict differences, or tries to remove the expression of uniqueness, or worse, tries to abandon the foundation of affection, respect, and decency, things don't go well. I've been thinking about that speech by President Nelson Mandela. He went on to say, it was quite fierce. He said, laws, practices, prejudices that place constraints on freedom of expression are a disservice to society. I've been thinking about that because I don't like the fact that some people disagree with my religion. I don't like the fact that some people disapprove of my politics or of my sexuality. Still, I want them to have the freedom to express themselves without risk of losing my respectful, decent treatment of them, just so long as their opinion does not actually restrict my freedom. It's complicated. I'm thinking about that statement of President Mandela. Practices that place constraints on freedom of expression are a disservice to society. And I'm asking myself, how do I constrain freedom? Mine and yours. Oh, I can think up a dozen ways. One way is by not allowing you to have a voice if I disagree with you. I do it. It's embarrassing, but I do. I'll tune you out. How am I going to reconcile that to my spiritual value? I have to think about that. And another way is by trusting my own prejudices to give me accurate information about how to engage in this world. Now, you probably already know that the voice of prejudice cannot be trusted. It's just like the voice of anger. It's not reliable. And if you take advice from anger and prejudice, what you get is more anger and more prejudice. And all you wanted was more love and more connection and more compassion and more peace. And I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about the word prejudice and how it means to judge in advance of knowing. And I've been thinking about it because I've been reading the recommended book of the month, Blink. Oh, gosh, this is excellent reading. The Power of Thinking Without Thinking. And in it, he writes about that amazing ability that we have to know things without intellectually figuring them out, linear-wise. In a blink of an eye, just from a small slice of information, we can know things. It's fascinating. And we would call that talent, we would call it our intuitive prompting. It's the ability of our spiritual self to know without being told. And when you get further along in the book, he also writes about the dark side of that ability. How sometimes we restrict our freedom because we don't go far enough. We judge too quickly. We don't get below the surface of that little narrow bit of information. We limit ourselves to what we think we already know. And maybe it's because we have strong associations with certain words or certain ideas. Maybe it's because we have strong histories with certain people or strong predictions based on family habits or strong opinions formed by unquestioned preferences. And all of this together can have a power over us to control us in limiting ways because it cuts us off from the infinite yet to be expressed moreness that is part of infinite mind. I would say it's the heart of our teaching. To learn to think deliberately and clearly, what do I want to be, say, or do, or create, while at the same time remaining open to the intuitive nudges, remaining open to something even larger than what I'm thinking up, even better. I want to remain open to that. I want to be open to something even better than being right. I want to be open to something even better than being the greatest and strongest nation. I want to be open to something even better than winning. I want to be open to something even better than getting what I want. I want to be open to something even better than a world that works for everyone. And I want it for me, and I want it for everyone. That's why our topic this morning is so important. Active listening, because it's about listening deeper than what is on the surface of life, and whether that means I'm listening to myself or to others or to my intuitive nudges. It's about turning the practice, the act of listening, into a spiritual practice, one that can and will lead us to a better appreciation of diversity. Because that's the power of listening. It opens us up to what we don't already know. Many people don't actually listen. They're just waiting for their turn to speak, mentally planning their response. That can make it difficult to hear well. And I know, because that's how I used to listen. Before I studied science of mind, I would be overly focused on preparing my answer. Even while people were still speaking, I would often interrupt them in the middle of their sentence so that I could hurry on to the important part, my opinion. I'd often tell myself, I remember this, I've heard enough, I get it, let's move this along. And looking back at that now and the way I engaged with people, it seems like I was trying to understand this complex novel, this person in front of me, by reading every 20th word in the book. Not enough. And so this practice of not hearing and not listening, it developed into a tendency to reject quickly, to generalize, to jump to conclusions, which is just another way of describing prejudice. Generalize and jump. See, I thought I already knew everything. And this confidence in my self-knowledge, it got in the way of actual listening, which it turns out isn't really good for building relationships. Not with people, and not with life. Turns out I was tuning out life too, interrupting life's messages with my own thoughts. I just wasn't available for the greater yet to be. Life and people couldn't get through to me. I was already too full of myself. Then I learned at the Center for Spiritual Living the idea that we started with this morning, that the ground of all being, sometimes known as God, the infinite mind of the Creator, was indeed infinite, without limits, and that it spread in every direction in all times and was the source of endless possibility. And it was at any point more than what I could conceive of. And I began to learn to listen in the way Brother Lawrence, that 17th century monk, suggested we do. He suggested that we do everything as if it were an act of worship. I've thought about that. Even listening to others, an act of worship. It really helps me when I think about that. It helps me to listen to people when I disagree with them. An act of worship. It helps me when I'm having difficulty remaining present. I ask myself, can I turn this into an act of worship? I ask myself, how would I be in this situation if this person in front of me were Maya Angelou, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Nelson Mandela? And it shifts things for me because I realize maybe I would look at them in a focused, open-hearted way. Maybe I would pay attention. Maybe I would listen and stop planning. possibly I'd even be willing to be moved, enriched, and opened up by what I experience. Because our topic is active listening, I want to invite you to practice active listening this week. And I'm going to give you some guidelines for how to do that. I want to invite you to notice how actively listening to someone increases your feeling of oneness and connection, and how deeply spiritual it can be. Now pick someone to practice on, and let it be someone you love, rather than someone you have deep-seated disagreements with. You can escalate the practice level later, once you get your skills done. And the way you do it is you begin your conversation with a question that is easy for them to answer, one that doesn't require too much personal information. For example, you might say, "Have you seen any good movies lately?" Oh, the art of small talk. It's underrated. See, that question only requires a yes or no answer. And if the person you're practicing on wants to offer more information, they will. And you'd see, if they don't, you'll know. And you don't prod, you just move on to the next candidate. If they do want to offer more information, you can follow your intuition by opening them up with simple questions that are likely to receive more complete answers. For example, what did you think about it? Oh, to witness somebody talking about what they think about anything is a holy moment. And then here's the challenge. You listen to their response without interrupting them and without offering your opinion, just in the way Brother Lawrence advised, as if what you were doing were an act of worship. It can change you. This stuff can change you. Genuine listening, someone wrote, is looking past ourselves and past what we want to say, so that we might be more open to witnessing what is in someone's heart. And when we learn that skill, it will develop in us the strength to truly listen to life. And that will cause us to be capable of knowing just how much love there is in us for the world. I invite you now to breathe in with me. Let your eyes close. As you imagine that the words I read to you, words of prayer adapted from our founder, Ernest Holmes, and imagine you're saying these to yourself first thing in the morning before you start your day, or perhaps it's last thing in the evening before you go to sleep. Deliberately, sincerely, and quietly I turn from the outer world and from my response to it to the inner world of spirit. I turn to the center of God life within me, for I know I could not be alive without it. God's life in me is a center of peace and order within me. And through this prayer, I align myself with these aspects of the divine. I now affirm that all of my responses to life are governed by my awareness of God's peace and order within me. This allows me to do everything that is mine to do in the right order and with the right attention and with the right affection. And so it is that I move through this world untroubled, without strain or tension, for I now am free from whatever past bondages may have been, and today, right now, peace is alive in me. Now, from this awareness of peace, I listen. I listen to life. I listen to my heart. I listen to inner wisdom. I listen to others. I listen and I learn, and I recognize the wonder of life within all people, and this causes me to give thanks.